Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Nightmare Doll Cardfight Vanguard Pale Moon Standard deck profile for Post Clan Selection Volume 2. Out of all the decks I've been working on from the clan selection, Nightmare Dolls were always one I tried to keep updated because it was basically a deck that was supported since the beginning of standard format with the form of Nightmare Doll Alice, and then through a bunch of different Nightmare Doll support, we were given the final, I would say, cluster of different Nightmare Doll cards to make this deck as pure as it can possibly be, I would say, for standard format. Very, very happy with the whole playstyle of the Workeroids for standard format. It's definitely a different take than we initially had for, I would say, premium format, focusing a good amount on the pressure that cards like Nightmare Doll Catherine could originally provide. But with the newest edition of Nightmare Doll Chelsea and all the other Nightmare Dolls, like I said, I'm very, very happy with the take we have on the deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Nightmare Doll Grade 3 lineup, we are running 4 Nightmare Doll Chelsea. Out of all the cards, Nightmare Dolls are able to have a full Grade 3 lineup, which I think is very, very awesome. For the standard support with Nightmare Doll Chelsea on Vanguard Circle at the end of the battle attacked, you can counterblast 1 and call up to 2 Workeroids from your soul to rear. If your opponent's Vanguard is Grade 3 or greater, those called cards get plus 10,000 power until end of turn. So the Workeroids are comprised of the good majority of the Nightmare Doll cards that we're running in the deck. So as long as you build up your soul early game, you should have some pretty good call targets, or even just riding Chelsea over some of the other different Nightmare Dolls gives you more targets to call out with this card. And on rear, at the end of the battle they attacked, if your Vanguard is a Workeroid, you can put this unit into your soul, choose up to one of your opponent's rear guards, and your opponent puts that unit into his or her soul. So having that option means that you can take care of rear guards. It's not necessarily retiring them. It is giving them a little bit of soul support, but also just being able to get rid of that unit entirely is what I like about Chelsea. It's more pressure having this card on rear guard and then potentially just, re-riding into another one of these cards, building up your Imaginary Gift Excel while giving you more cards to call out with Chelsea when she attacks at the end of the battle. And then for the added backup for some of the older support we've had for Nightmare Dolls, I also run 4 Nightmare Doll Carol. On Vanguard, when placed, you look at 5 cards from the top of your deck and put 1 Workeroid from among them into your soul. Shuffle your deck. If you put a Grade 3 Workeroid, you may call that card to rear. So this setup with Carol is great for that setup that I spoke of earlier, having, just cards to set up going into Nightmare Doll Chelsea. And on Vanguard, when your Grade 3 rear guard is put into your soul, you can counterblast 1 and discard 2 cards from your hand to ride a Workeroid from your soul as stand, and that unit gets drive -1 until end of turn. So even if you set up Nightmare Doll Chelsea in the soul, being able to potentially, ride that card as stand to have more pressure when that card attacks is what's so great about Nightmare Doll Carol for that setup. It's literally just that. It's just set up for all the other Nightmare Doll plays we have in the deck. With the last final support for the Grade 3 lineup, I know we're running a pretty high Grade 3 lineup, but the Grade 3s for the Nightmare Dolls are definitely the strongest ones for the deck, with the last one being the most well-known Nightmare Doll, being Nightmare Doll Alice. On Vanguard, when placed, you may call up to 1 Workeroid from your soul to rear, and that unit gets plus 5,000 till end of turn. With the rear guard ability, at the end of the battle they attack, you counterblast 1, soul blast 1, and put this unit into your soul and call a non-Grade 3 from your soul to rear. So it's pretty generic, not really focusing on Workeroids, which we are running a few non-Workeroids in the deck, which makes Alice great for that setup, just being able to have the options to call those cards out to rear while focusing on more of the Workeroid plays with cards like Chelsea and also Carol. So having Alice just as more soul buildup as well with some of your other Workeroids, if you have that initial setup, you have more cards to call out, with Carol being more of the Vanguard play and Alice and Chelsea being more offensive, and having just more and more Excel markers to call these units on means more and more pressure as well. And that's it for the Grade 3s. We'll now move on to the Grade 2s. I run 4 Nightmare Doll Marissa on Vanguard or rear when placed from hand. You put a card from your hand into your soul and look at 7 cards on the top of your deck. Reveal up to 2 non-Grade 2 Workeroid normal units from among them. Put them into your hand and shuffle your deck. So this setup gives you more ride targets. It is search power. Being able to put a card from your hand to the soul, you can potentially put any of the Grade 3s we spoke of already. With that setup being a Vanguard or rear, this is a definite 4 of in the deck as well. It's not a once per turn, so having multiple Marissas to call out means more and more setup. You will invest a lot of your hand for these plays, but it'll be well worth it in the end if you have all that setup ready to go, and then just going into the preferred Grade 3 ride target we spoke of. And for additional backup grade 2 support, I am also running 4 Dancing Knife Dancer with this card on rearguard at the end of the battle. At the end of your turn, if you have no face-up cards in your damage zone, put this unit to your soul and countercharge 1. So you can eat up counterblasts and soul pretty easily with cards like Nightmare Doll Alice. So being able to rely on countercharging with your Dancing Knife Dancer is why I am running for this card. Even early game, if you just have little damage, it's not so much about the fact that you'll have 5 damage and no face-up damage. Even if you just have, the 1 damage and it's counterblasted, being able to put Dancing Knife Dancer back into the soul to make up for that counter charge, just very, very useful for that resource. It's at the end of the turn, so you can potentially heal that card, but it's much better just to set up more and more face-up damage to use come next turn also. And then for the last of the grade 2 lineup, I also run 4 Dancing Princess of the Night Sky on Vanguard or Rear. When placed from hand, you counterblast 1, soul blast 1, and call a card from your soul to rear. It's just more setup, and being the fact that it works on Vanguard or Rear Guard, potentially with Marissa, just gives us more and more ride targets to go into for the preferred Vanguard ride target. If I go into Dancing Princess of the Night Sky, then I can just call Marissa to Rearguard and have more options with that card. And on Rearguard, when placed from soul, this unit gets plus 3,000 power until end of turn. It normally can't hit any of the force decks if your opponent's at full grade 3 power, but it still makes up if it's early game just for the call to soul as an additional plus 3,000 power. And if you do call it on an Excel circle, you have the plus 5 power or the plus 10 depending on what kind of marker you call out using Imaginary Gift Excel. And that's it for the grade 2s. Moving on now to the grade 1s. Another one of the best cards in the deck is Nightmare Doll Abigail. On Vanguard, when placed, you soul charge 1. So just with the potential soul charge and the number of grade 3s we're running, it's a good hit there that you could potentially get with this card on Vanguard. And at the end of the turn, on Rear, retire this unit and return a grade 3 Workoroid from your soul to hand. And if your Vanguard is a Workoroid, you can countercharge 1. More countercharge power that I spoke of before with this card, and just having the option for returning a grade 3 Workoroid from your soul to your hand if you potentially, soul charge cards like Nightmare Doll Chelsea or Carol that you just want for more re-ride power. This is where Nightmare Doll Abigail comes in handy. It builds up soul when you ride it when placed on Vanguard Circle, but then has great setup on the Rearguard Circle for all of your future plays with the Nightmare Dolls. And I also run 4 Nightmare Doll Beverly with this card on Rear. When your other Workoroid is placed in the same column as this unit, it gets plus 5,000 till end of turn. So this just provides some power to your Rearguard circles that aren't on Excel circles. Being able to give plus power makes for a good boost that we spoke of before with some of your other ones, especially with cards that need to hit for more of that play or just when they battle. So cards like Nightmare Doll Alice having this additional boost power will definitely come in handy. It's why I like running 4 Nightmare Doll Beverly, being another Workoroid to benefit from just the setup in the soul and the different calls that you can make with your, Nightmare Doll Carol or even just Nightmare Doll Chelsea, since they both have to call out Workoroids with their respective skills. And then to finish off the grade 1s, I ideally do want to run 2 Masquerade Bunny, just being a grade 3 searcher to preferably get the, grade 3 of choice to my hand. That's why I'm running this. I have Purple Trapezes in here as just a spot filler for the grade 3 searcher, but preferably would want 2 Masquerade Bunny. If you have the Purple Trapezes, you can run it as an option for now. But with most of the calling from the soul being in the case of Workoroids, you just want this card as an added grade 3 searcher. And that's it for the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0, preferred starter is Entertain Messenger. I know we have the Silverthorn starter that was released and also the Magia doll one. So I felt Entertain Messenger being more of the generic fits with the Nightmare Doll play that we've originally gotten for the deck. Sadly, no Nightmare Doll starter was ever given to us, but still very, very fitting, I would say. And also for the trigger lineup, I decided to go with the rainbow triggers. So I'm running 4 Poison Juggler, just with the critical pressure on Rearguard especially, or the Excel marker, you name it. This card definitely comes in handy, but with all the different Workoroids we can call out and wanting to give them power, I am also running 4 front trigger. Hoop Magician, we didn't have any Nightmare Doll triggers, sadly, in standard format, so making do with what we have. And like I said, the rainbow lineup just keeps your opponent on their toes, giving all your units power, but still having the pressure of being able to use a critical trigger. And also for the Sentinel, sticking with the draw, running the 4 Hades Hypnotist, just the preferred, guard power against your opponent, and just having some more hand consistency with this card. And lastly, the 4 Candy Clown. It was the original heal we had for standard, and I would say it's very, very fitting with the Pale Moon Circus being the go focus on this deck and the original cards like Nightmare Doll Alice. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Continuing along with these decks, I'm having a lot of fun making all these different deck profiles for the Clan Selection Volume 2. I hope you're all enjoying it as well. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Qualia out.